Hello, Jerome
Hi.
Ortega.
Hi, Monika.
Welcome. Thank you for taking the time to come and chat with me. I'm super excited to talk to you. If you don't mind, just give us a little introduction about yourself.
Sure. Okay, so again, Jerome. So I I have lost probably, I guess we'll just get right into it, but I have lost, if we look at the high and low end, I have lost at one point over 100 pounds. I haven't lost as much now. A lot of that is just the maintaining portion of it, but
Mhm.
I've lost most of this weight through fasting, or primarily through fasting. I have been obese, morbidly obese, at many points in my life, almost my entire life. And it's only been
Mhm.
this last, I think, almost, well, coming up to 2 years where I've actually been able to keep the weight off
Mhm.
consistently. So that's pretty much a short synopsis of
Yeah.
me.
I mean,
Mhm.
that's amazing. I will post your pictures on YouTube on the video, but like your before and after transformation, you don't even look like the same person.
I get that a lot. Actually, it's funny you say that because I was at a family party last week, and I haven't seen a lot of families since COVID, and now that a lot of us are vaccinated, I
Mhm.
went over there and I had my mask on, and a lot of people who were there didn't even know it was me until like I
Yeah.
took it off, and yeah,
I can
so
see that. Yeah, it's like, who's this guy? Who's this sexy man over here?
stop.
No, like you look amazing. I'm
Well,
super
thank
proud of
you.
you. So, that's a lot of weight that you've lost. How did you get introduced to fasting? I know you've tried different diets,
Hmm.
different things, like probably most people out there that can relate
Yeah.
to this. How did you get introduced to fasting?
So I don't know exactly where I started or how I started, but it was years ago. And it
Mhm.
wasn't extended fasting at the time. It was intermittent fasting. And I
Mm.
maybe it was in an internet article or a video. I don't know exactly where, but a lot of people were talking about 16 eights, right? Doing a 16-hour fast in an 8-hour eating window. And
Mhm.
when I and like you said earlier, I have tried everything like caloric restriction, trying to do low carb, incorporating exercise, all that kind of stuff, eating
Yeah.
multiple meals a day, small, and like none of that has ever really worked for me, or at least permanently worked, where I could
Mhm.
just keep the weight off and not gain it back, because that's always been an issue for me my entire life.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, like I had just started doing 16-hour, fasts with 8-hour eating windows. And then that kind of like, as time grew on, that changed to like 20-hour fasts, 4 hour, and then like OMAD. But even then, when I was doing it, it had success, but I would always end up gaining weight.
Mhm.
I could do 23, I could do OMAD, and I would still end up eating, or I would still end up gaining weight. And a lot of that has to do with my own like overeating issues, which is
Mhm.
why like I had started to look into extended fasting.
Yeah, so same thing with me. I started with intermittent, like the 16/8, like probably
Mm-hmm.
4 years ago, and it it worked, but I actually didn't see like a huge change in my weight because just like you said, like I would fast and then I would just go and eat normal, and so
Right.
it just wasn't enough calorie restriction, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
for it to actually see the difference. So same, and then you've been consistent with the prolonged fasting for the last 20 something months, like
Yeah,
21 months.
21 plus months.
Hmm. And that's
And
when you lost majority of your weight, right?
have kept it off. I have never been this low in weight ever in my entire life. Like the last time
Mhm.
I could ever remember being in like the 130s or 140s, I mean, I
Yeah.
was in grade school. That was probably the last time I was ever this low in weight.
So while we at the weight, like what was your highest weight and what are you currently now? Like what, or I guess what was your highest and lowest when you were fasting?
Sure. So like at one point I was over, I would say, because I remember the last time I weighed on, because especially when I weighed so much, I never wanted to
Mhm.
step on the scale. I was too
Yeah.
embarrassed, to be like, how could I?
Mhm.
And like, I'm not a tall I'm 5'3", I'm short. right?
Okay.
So like 5'3" at one point, I remember looking at the scale and I was over 235 pounds, right? So
Wow. Yeah.
5'3", 235. And then this past December, I had, through these consistent fasts with these
Mm-hmm.
like 90-hour, that was usually my average, which is my average now, around 65 to 90-hour fasts.
Mm-hmm.
I had gotten all the way down to 124.4. So that was like
Wow.
a goal of mine, to just get under 125 for
Mm.
no real, because at one point I was 135 and I was like, this is good. But I don't know, there was something in me that said, and like, I don't know if that's like the competitive like part of me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, at one point I was 124.4. I look at those pictures now and I'm like, that might have been a little too much.
That's what I was gonna ask you. Like, sometimes we have like a certain number in mind, and I've done that before, and I'll get to a certain amount, and I'm like, I am just like too skinny. Like, I don't
Right.
look healthy. I look like almost like,
Yeah.
yes.
And
So
like, oh, I'm sorry.
no, no,
I
no.
don't
Go
mean
ahead.
to,
Go ahead.
I was just
No.
going to say, it's like, a lot of people who have seen me lose that weight, obviously people who are close to me, they support me. But even when I was that low, at that
Mm-hmm.
point, I was having some people say, hey, like, you're doing good. It's just, it's like they were trying to be very nice about saying
Yeah.
like, maybe you're pushing it. And like
Mm.
at one point I felt like maybe I was at the moment, at the time, I felt like I was fine. Like I physically, I felt fine. But again, when I look back through some of those pictures, I was like, oh, like,
Yeah.
yeah. And so what ended up happening is, when I hit that weight, because it was like a goal of mine, because like my 40th birthday was coming up and I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to like get under
Which is
120.
crazy. I cannot believe you are 40. Like I was just telling you before we started this, I was like,
Right.
you look like a 28-year-old boy. Like you look
I'll
so
take it.
young.
I'll take
Yes,
it.
I
Thank
love
you.
it.
But yeah, and so like it was just that weird part of me that was just like, yeah, like you've been doing this so long, let's hit this other goal. But when I turned 40, I said, okay, let's go to the gym. And like I
Mm-hmm.
actually went back to the gym and I started lifting weights, and
Mm-hmm.
like 125 turned into like 135. And at one point I was very good at around 140. I was lifting maybe 3 or 4 times a week, doing cardio 5 times
Mm-hmm.
a week. And right now, currently though, I sit in the high 140s. It's not where I want to be. And it's funny because I've been consistent for so long that in my head, it's just like, I got this. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be, smooth, but it never is smooth sailing. And so the last couple of months have been a little bit of a struggle, but we can get into that.
Yeah,
That's,
we'll definitely talk about this because I think a lot of people go through these struggles. So yeah, we'll
right.
talk about that later. But what is the weight? Do you have a certain number? So 125 was a little too low.
Right.
What is the number? Do you have a certain number or certain look that you want to get to as far as weight goal?
Yeah. So like, obviously I think really it isn't about the number, right? Like we get
Hmm.
obsessed about that number on the
Yes.
scale. We just can't help it. It's something that I've been obsessed with
Hmm.
forever. I mean, even to this day, I still get on the scale every single morning. And sometimes I'll
Hmm.
weigh multiple times a day just to see where I'm at.
Yeah.
And it to the point where it's just like, is this a little obsessive? Maybe, maybe not. Like sometimes I tell myself you're just using it as a guide. And it is. It's been
Mhm.
helpful as like a statistical way of looking at the numbers. But ideally though, I think I want to sit anywhere between, I would say, maybe 135 to 138. And like I've been there before. I know like how I looked and how I felt. And even lifting weights, like I felt good around that range. And so I think I would be happy there. Even 140, I think I would be okay at. So
Mhm.
I'm happy where I'm at right now, like in the high 140s, but I know I can lose a little more. And it's like when I look at myself in the mirror and like, we're our own biggest critics. I'll look at the
Yes.
mirror and it's like, I'm just judging everything I'm looking at. And I'm like, this could be better. This could.
Well, but sometimes it's also like recomp, like
Sure.
changing your body composition, like adding more muscle, obviously for a guy
Right.
versus like being skinny. So there's a lot of, you know,
Hmm. which is also why that number really doesn't matter, you know? Like, I mean, obviously it gets in your head, but yeah, like adding more muscle is going to put more weight on the scale. It's just a matter of like, and that's why like I even, you know, I always tell people like, try your clothes on first. Like if it fits better, if you look better, then like, don't be so obsessed with that number on the scale. It's things I say, and like I can't help myself.
Do you have any loose skin? Like you lost at one point like over 100 pounds. Like do you have any loose skin
I
anywhere?
I do, yeah. It's mostly like on the lower like stomach, right?
Okay.
That's mostly where it is. I mean, again, like over 100 pounds if you take my highest and my lowest, and it's something that I never initially thought was going to be a thing. And it's funny because like a lot of people they'll always say like, well, yeah, you fast, so it should go away. And like, I mean, I think it might depend on every person might be
Yeah.
different, but like, I have pictures of myself with my shirt off before, and like, I haven't even posted that because like, I'm so just like self-conscious about doing that maybe one of these days. But like, if people really got the grasp of like how, because like I used to wear a 38 size waist, and like almost to the point where I was going to buy a 40 size waist, right? Like, and like, it was just, that's where most of my weight would gather. And now I wear a size 28 waist, to the
Wow.
point that like, I can't even,
Yes.
so like the 28s are loose on me. I have to like, even, I always say this, like when I make my YouTube videos, but like the shirts I wear now, I shop at the boys section at Target. I wear a size boys like 10 to 12 large,
Wow.
12 to 14. And like, and so like, yeah, that's a considerable, if you think about the size of those shirts and those pants versus, I used to wear double XL adult shirts and, just to like cover everything. That is a lot of skin that has been like stretched.
Stretched, yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
then, and I think sometimes people get a little caught up in this, and they're like, "Well, fasting's supposed to help with tighten the skin," and it does. It like
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any loose skin actually, maybe just a little under my arms here, but my stomach it's mostly tightened up. But again, like I
That's
lost
great.
60 pounds. And
Yeah.
I'm tall. I'm 5'9". So
Mm-hmm.
I carried my weight a little bit different.
Sure.
If a lot of your weight is in your stomach and you lose over 100 pounds, it is hard. Like some of that skin will tighten, but you
Right.
will have some of it's not a miracle cure for loose skin when you get to a certain level. Like you get above that 70, 80 pounds. Yeah. Do you plan, is it something that's like annoying in your way? Is it something that you would want to remove surgically, or you're okay with
So
it?
I've thought about it, especially like when I was, at like my ideal weight for a long time. I was just like, it's one of those things where cause like I'll wear a compression shirt, right? Because it helps. It kind of helps
Yeah.
put everything together or whatever. But it is something that I considered at the same time. Like I've tried to like Google it, and I just don't know if that's something that's in my cards at this moment. Something to consider, but it doesn't. When we say annoying, it's just more of a vanity thing, right? Like
Yeah.
I'll look in the mirror and I'm just like, ugh, like, this could look better if like the loose skin wasn't here. It isn't awful, and I think again, it's like people will tell me it's like you're making a big deal out of nothing, but again, like that's just like how we look at ourselves in the mirror.
Yeah.
It isn't something I think about too often, but maybe down the road, but I really don't know.
So it would be more aesthetic, it's not like
Sure.
risk of infection. Like some people, if they have a lot of skin and it gets red and then like infected or rubbing on your like belt and stuff, then that's
Yeah.
different. But if it's aesthetic and you can deal with it, it's
Right.
not that big of a deal, I guess.
Right. Exactly.
That's awesome. I do want to go back to, obviously we all have our own story of why do we gain weight? Like at what point in our lives, like what happened? Like, is it emotional eating? Is it family or something that happened in your life? Like, do you have a certain event in your life that caused you over time to gain the weight? Or is it just something that happened from childhood and
I mean, that's a great question, and it's something that I've thought about, like as I grew up and I got older. Is like there were a lot of times where, so just to be transparent, like I deal with disordered eating. I mean,
Mhm.
I make these YouTube videos where I eat a ton of food in one sitting because I'm able to do so to like achieve satiety, right? Where I
Yeah.
feel full. And I don't know if I can pinpoint one exact moment, but I do remember that when I was like 14 or 15, I would already start asking myself, why am I doing what I'm doing? And when I say that, it means, why am I overeating the way I do? Uh, an easy way to kind of like explain this is like, I remember coming home from high school, like walking home or taking the bus home from high school, stopping at the gas station, and I would
Mhm.
buy all this food and I would like stuff it in my backpack and I would hide it and then I would eat it in my room,
Mm.
like
Mhm.
secretly, privately. And I think a lot of that was emotional eating, either because I was stressed out, and it's still something that I do to this day. I I feel like I have lost all this weight and people think that like it's smooth sailing after that, but it is a lifelong journey. It is something that you
Yes.
have to deal with every single day. It's a struggle
Yes.
for everybody. And
Absolutely.
we have those good days and bad days, but
Hmm.
so when I was younger though, because I was always overweight even as a child and like growing up as an adolescent, we never had any kind of like sweet foods or like junky foods in the house. It was more like, it was mostly healthy foods, and I think a lot of that was because it was like you got to lose weight, you're, and it was just, it's like, I'm not gonna sit here and be like it was a parental thing, but like I think a lot of it was a factor. Taking stuff away from me that I couldn't have made me want it more. And I
So
don't know if that's,
restricting those foods. Is anyone else in your family, was anyone else overweight in your
um,
family or?
a little maybe, but mostly not.
Hmm.
It was, I think for the most part, like, cause I have a lot of cousins and I have a lot of
Mm.
family, but for the most part, most of us were just average, I guess. Maybe a few were overweight, but
Hmm.
not to the point of where I got to, like the point of being morbidly obese.
Yeah. So restricting the treat food. So you felt like I'm gonna buy all this stuff and eat in secret, and that created more.
It did. It was in it. Eventually, it turned into like a way to escape. Right.
Mm.
It was a way where I eat. I feel good in that moment. Like it
Hmm.
sounds amazing, and all that,
Yeah.
and then you do it, and then the next day, it's just like you beat yourself up over it.
Yeah, and you feel worse, right? And
Hmm.
then you feel guilty, and that's the biggest thing. I some of the people that I coach, like they'll message me and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I feel so bad. I ate bad," and I'm like, the worst thing you can do is beat yourself up for what you did yesterday. You just got to forgive yourself, learn from it, of course, and
Hmm.
just get back into it. And I've done it. I'm super guilty of doing all those things because I've done it
Right.
over the last 10 years, like that roller coaster. So,
Hmm.
yeah. That's awesome. I have been watching some of your YouTube videos, which they're great, by the way. If
Thank
anyone
you.
haven't, if people out there have not seen your videos, definitely go watch them. They're awesome. Your YouTube name is
Finally
Finally
fasting.
Fasting,
Hmm.
and one of the YouTube videos you're talking about one of the primary reasons for you wanting to lose this weight was for kind of vanity for a wedding
Right.
that you had to do. And you had 78 days to lose a certain amount of weight. And it was really cool because you show your board and like everything that you have, like you marked all your days, what
I
you
did.
did. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, was that
Yeah.
your main like inspiration, like for losing this big chunk of weight?
It was. There were a lot of things that actually played into it. So at the time, I was living in LA, and
Mhm.
I had just gotten a new job out there, and so I moved out there, and I had a wedding to go to in late 2019.
Not
And
his wedding, it was a friend's wedding,
yeah,
right?
not my wedding. So, I say 78 days, but it was actually long. Like I had more time. I knew that wedding was coming. It was just a matter of like me saying, okay, I have 90 something days. So I would mark it. So that whiteboard that I used, it used to be a higher day than 78. It was just like me trying, and I'm like, I messed up today. So like, let's erase this board. And it was, but yeah, eventually 78 days was what it turned out to be. I was like, okay, 78 days left. And I use that whiteboard because it was accountability, right? So I was in a co-working space. I worked with a couple other people in this co-working space, and a lot of people who worked in that place, not even, with our company, would pass by and see that whiteboard. So I did that on purpose so people could see, like, it was accountability for me. The
Did you
fact
keep
that
it at home or at work? Like,
no, that was at work. That
oh, at
was
work.
yeah, that
Oh,
whiteboard was at work, and it was public,
wow.
and people would walk by and they would like look, and they're like, what is that guy write? And it was literally my weight and like, my fasting and all that. And I brought a scale to work, and I would weigh every day. And one of the reasons I did that was when I first started doing it for accountability, it wasn't working because there wasn't enough on the line. I'm kind of that person where it's just like the more competitive it is for me, the better drive I have. So
Yeah.
like two people at work, they're just like, okay, like let's bet on it, which is what, and like somebody bet me $500 that I couldn't lose
Wow.
50 pounds in the 78 days. And I said, okay, let's go. And so, yeah,
Did you?
yeah, and so like I one person 500, the other person 250. And
Wow.
so like that was just a bigger motivation for me to do this. In my head, I had already implemented a plan of like prolonged fasting or extended fasting. I just, at the time, I was not familiar with like what routine I should use. I really wasn't aware of like doing rolling fasts. It wasn't even a term that was in my head, but it was something that evolved into it as I started doing it. But yeah, those 78 days it was a great learning experience. It was also very tough. And for me, it was a good way to show accountability.
So what was your length of fasting during those 78 days, and how much did you lose total?
So when I started at that point, I think I was around 220 pounds. I don't know the exact number. It was around 220 pounds. And that is actually, when I talk about 21 months plus of consistent fasting, I'm talking about when I started in September 2019, when I weighed 220 plus pounds. And I think during the course of the time, I wasn't sure how long I should be fasting for. So I think the first couple of fasts, I was like, okay, I'll do like a 36 hour or a 40 something hour. And then I would, I was kind of playing it by ear, and my refeeds would be short. I told myself, I'm like, okay, you're going to do these fasts. You're going to eat in a small window of time, and then you're just going to repeat the process. As far as how long they would go, I didn't know. So like the first couple were like in the 30s and in the 40s. And then I started pushing it into the 60s and then kind of playing back and forth. And weighing every day was actually helpful for me, because then it would show me like, if I was, losing weight, or at least on the number, but it was just a guide. Eventually though, I think there was one stretch of time where I think I went almost a month or 3 weeks plus where I did like, I ate once a week. So like I fasted for an entire week, refed like on a Saturday for like 6 hours or so. And then I would go do another 7-day fast, and it was great. I lost a ton of weight during that time, but that was also really brutal. And like
Yeah.
the thought of doing that again, I don't know if I could,
Well,
but
you're pretty lean now, so that probably would not be even possible because the leaner you get, the harder it
right.
is to do those long fasts.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, I did end up losing the 50 pounds plus. I don't remember again exactly where I was at, but I think I had hit either the high 160s at that
Mm,
point. And then, I was a little scared actually, because after the wedding, I was like, okay, now you have nothing on the line. Like, what are
mm,
you going to do? And, thankfully, this YouTube channel started for me because I was like, okay, I need to show more accountability somewhere. And
yes.
that's kind of how the YouTube channel evolved, because I decided, like, if I want if I want to keep myself, again, accountable,
Hmm.
something, I had to do something to show that like I was doing something to keep my like
Hmm.
weight loss health journey going.
Yeah, accountability is huge. It has been for me. I know it is for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, your chances of reaching your goals with having accountability, it's like 95%.
I believe
So
it. Yeah.
where there's no accountability, there's no responsibility. So like for me, like I have some accountability partners. I do have a coach, and just my Instagram, like I can't just like, you'll know when I gain weight, right? And it's happened before. I'm like 10 pounds heavier. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to lose this because people are depending on me. I am
Absolutely.
accountable to my followers, these people that have been following me for a while through my weight loss journey. And that helps me. It makes a
Mm-hmm.
huge difference because if you're not accountable to anything or anyone out there, you just like don't really have a
Yeah.
goal.
Right.
So,
And like I mean, you hit the nail on the head, because a lot of that is just, if you don't have that accountability, right? Like you can keep
mhm.
yourself in your apartment or your house or whatever, and like nobody can see like how you're eating or what you're
Yeah.
doing. And yeah, not everybody needs that, but there are some people where like it is definitely a benefit to do that.
Hmm. One thing I wanted to ask you, going back to the whiteboard and having the accountability at work, were people judgy about like the long fast, especially because a lot of people don't understand prolonged fasting, or were
Hmm.
people supportive of it, or how did you go about that, or a little bit of both?
Yeah,
I'm
a little
sure.
bit of both. So the guys that I worked with at the time, like we were a small marketing company,
Hmm.
and the guys I worked with at the time didn't understand. These were guys who were like in their early 20s, who were like lean and
Yeah.
tall, and like they could eat anything they want. And like
Yeah.
that was a rough part for it too. So like as I was fasting during that time, I would still go out to lunch with them. They would have candy and like they eat whatever at their desks, and like that was, for me, that was more of just like willpower at that point. But
Mm.
a lot of them didn't understand. And I've always had people ask me like, aren't you going to die doing that? And I mean, and I guess, to be fair, it's a valid question. A lot of what I do, or just like fasting in general, isn't the norm, especially here in the States. It's not
Hmm.
something that a lot of people do. I mean, it looks like there's a little more popularity behind it now or today, but like, even just like in late 2019 when I started, like people didn't, when I would explain it,
Yeah.
they'd be like, that's not normal. Just eat normal. And like, and it's, I get that a lot, where it's just like, just
Hmm.
restrict your calories and
Yeah.
exercise. And I wish I could like get into the whole, like, well, I've done that and it just doesn't work for me. And like,
Hmm.
I wish I could just tell people, you have to understand that everyone's situation is a little different.
Yeah.
Like, and something I always say is like, just because I fast for that long or I eat the way I do doesn't mean that you have to do it. You just have to find like what
What
works for
works
you.
for you? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I felt the same way when, I started looking into prolonged fasting. I was like, no, that's crazy. Like 24 hours, not to say like 72 hours. Like I thought it
Right.
was just crazy. But that is the only thing that worked for me. Restricting calories doesn't work for me. For somebody that's
Hmm.
a overeater and binge eater, emotional eater, it doesn't work. Like I wish I could just eat, 3 meals a day
Yeah, me
and
too.
restrict my calories, but it doesn't work. But also there's so many myths about fasting that a lot of people go by. And so learning, and I know you did this because you speak about this in your videos, actually getting on internet and learning anything you can. Don't just listen to people or naysayers like, oh, that's stupid, you're gonna die. There's
Right.
people that have fasted a year and didn't die.
Hmm.
So actually going out there and educating yourself, learning the risks, the benefits. Don't just listen to Monika or Jerome. Like, yeah, we've lost our weight and we've done our research, but do your own research. Knowledge is power, and it can actually motivate you to get started with fasting, because it's not just the weight. I think the biggest thing for me that got me motivated to fast is the other benefits, like looking younger. Look at you. You're like 10 years younger, at least from what you were before, like anti-aging,
Yeah.
health benefits, cancer. There's so many amazing benefits beyond fasting. Fasting is one of the benefits, of course, that most people are familiar with, but
Right.
the health benefits for me now are more important than even the weight.
Yeah. No,
Even
no,
when I
I,
get skinny, when I get to my goal weight, which I'm almost there, I still want to fast. I still
right.
want to spend, maybe twice a year and do like a longer fast.
Hmm.
Yeah. Is
Yeah.
this something that's for you? I'm sorry to
No,
cut
no,
you.
go ahead.
Is this something that you plan on doing for the rest of your life? Is this like a lifestyle now?
Yeah, complete lifestyle. This is the only thing that has ever worked for me to keep me in check. And when you were
Mhm.
talking about like the benefits, one of the main things as well is like the mentality, the mental part of it, right?
Yes.
Like I feel a lot more confident. I feel like
Mm.
losing this weight has brought back like the part of me that wants
Mm.
to be social, which is like
Yeah.
unfortunate because as I started to lose all this weight, COVID happened, and I was like, well, now I can't go and like do any, but even just like the confidence that I
Mhm.
have, the risks that I take, and it's not to say that people who are overweight or whatever shouldn't be more confident, shouldn't take risks. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that like losing this weight, putting myself in a better mental state
Mhm.
has given me the opportunity to like put myself out there more. It's also made me realize that like, hey, I'm still the same person that I was even when I weighed that much. I never had that confidence in me. If
Mhm.
anything, it's helped just boost like who I am as a person, whether I'm this weight or if I gain 80, like I'm not saying that's what I want, but I want people to understand that like, yeah, there is a physical benefit to it, but the mental aspect of it is huge as well.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
yeah, and just to like answer what you were asking, this is a lifestyle for me. It is the only thing that's ever worked. Uh, I would love to, you know, back off extended fasting. Like I don't want to do as many as I have or as often as I have, but like that's still a trial and error thing.
Mhm.
I will say like the things that I have dealt with in the past is like when I was 22, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, with high blood pressure. I was finding
Mhm.
myself in the ER a lot because I would get very anxious and like they'd have to do I think my blood pressure was so high, like two or three times that they had to do the was it the EKG or whatever, like
Yeah.
where they put
Mhm.
everything just to
12
make sure
lead EKG.
just to
Yeah.
make sure everything was okay.
How high was your blood pressure?
I don't even remember, but it was to the point where they had to do it because they
Mm.
just, they wanted to make sure everything was okay. I remember though, when I was when they first diagnosed me, with diabetes, my blood sugar was like in the 400 plus range. It was like
Wow.
extremely like, and like I had no idea what it meant. The thing is though, like my dad was also diabetic, so
Mhm.
like he was diabetic. I saw the complications that he dealt with,
Mhm.
and it's funny because like when, even though he had all those complications, I couldn't, it wasn't motivator for me to like
Mhm.
do something about it, you know. When my dad passed, uh it was difficult, and I thought like this was going to be my turn to like be like, okay, you need to like do the right things so you don't put yourself in this position. But like even then that still wasn't enough, and it's just it's interesting how the mind plays such a big part in it, because sometimes it just takes one certain thing to like flip that
Mhm.
switch. And I don't know. I don't know why it happened in LA for me. I don't know why, if it was just because of this wedding, but like it was just the matter of me doing it and then learning from it, right?
Mhm.
Like as these months have passed, I've learned so much about myself. I've learned so much about what I do or how my mind thinks, and like it at least puts me back in like a better balance than where I used to be.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, and people do ask, like, well, how do I get started? Like, I'm trying, I can't get this weight off. It's right here. You have
Yeah.
to come to your own, like, enough, because that's what happened to me. And that's where lost all my weight, was when COVID started. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I am a medical person. Like, this thing could kill me potentially, especially if I go to work.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what hit me. I was like, I don't want to spend this being in a lockdown, drinking, binge eating. I probably would have gained like another 50 pounds in the last year if I did not stop. So I don't know. It's like maybe everyone's rock bottom, maybe sometimes. And that's different for everyone. Or maybe just
Mm-hmm.
like getting to this, like if you have kids, like, okay, I want to be there for my kids graduating from high school. Like having that
Right.
big enough reason, like why are you doing it? The fear of death, fear of losing somebody. I don't. And you've seen your dad go through this,
Right.
and dying from it basically, and it still didn't change. So I don't know what it is. I think it's different for everyone, and it's hard
Absolutely.
to kind of say what specific thing it is for somebody. You have to, I think, figure it out yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're
Yeah.
right though. Like for a lot of people, it's just a matter of like doing it. You know, it's
Hmm.
getting yourself again in that mindset. I think a big thing that a lot of people miss is, yeah, the physical part is tough. The willpower to do these things can be difficult, but if you don't put yourself in that right mindset, like you might have all the physical, like, when a lot of us first start doing these like diets or fasts
Hmm.
or whatever, we have all the you feel like you have all the willpower in the world because
Yeah.
you're like, I'm going to do it. It's,
Hmm.
it's time. But I think the more important part is like, are you mentally there to keep doing
Hmm.
it? Because, we talk about diets and so on and so forth, but really this is a lifestyle.
Yeah.
People have said like, you can't just do these fasts forever, and it's like, well, I mean,
Yeah.
it's I have, like, if there's anyone at this point, I feel like I've been doing it for this long now that, if it doesn't show that it doesn't work, then I don't know what will.
And you don't have to be doing like 3 5 day fasts. You can just be
Exactly.
doing OMAD or 2MAD,
Yes.
and just maintain your weight this way. And I think that's the biggest thing for me with fasting. It was something that finally worked. Nothing
Yes.
worked. Keto, I've done keto. It worked for a little while. Then I regained weight because I stopped eating keto foods and I started eating carbs again. With
Right.
fasting, you really can't do it with any diet. Like
Yeah.
you can do vegan, vegetarian. It goes with every diet out there, carnivore, and it's the only thing I think that worked for me, and it gave me hope, like I can do this. And I think that what was the frustrating thing for me the last 10 years. Like losing weight with keto, regaining, losing, and I felt like a failure. I felt like I just couldn't
Sure.
follow the diet. I always worked out. I tried to eat healthy, but then I would get off the way of the diet and then regain over like 2 weeks, regain like 20 pounds. So it was mentally defeating. So finding fasting and how easy it is,
Mm-hmm.
because it is easy now, maybe not for some people that are just starting off.
Right. No, but that's so true, because I think out of any kind of way of eating or, regimen, fasting is the most
Mhm.
versatile. It is the most flexible way. I
Yeah.
had somebody ask me when I had brought it up to them, they were like, "Well, it sounds good, but like, what should I eat?" Because like
Mhm.
this person was very fixated on eating a certain set of foods, and like I don't really. And this person told me that while they enjoyed, they first started doing keto and they had lost
Mhm.
weight doing it, but felt bad because they felt like it was just too much meat and they didn't want to do that. And so they didn't want to go back to and I said, no, you eat the way you want to eat.
Mhm.
You just need to figure out your fasting regimen. And the question usually is like, well, what should I fast at? And I said, whatever you're comfortable with. Like, if you want to start off, if you've never fasted before and like you're not familiar with it, like start even with a 12, see how that
Yeah.
feels. If that feels okay, then move on and add an hour or add more.
Mhm.
And the more you do it, the more you'll realize that like you don't need to be eating all day,
Mhm.
and but that's again, that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty for me as well. Like so like even before keto, I think before keto was like the big term, I was doing low carb, right? Like
Mhm.
that was, and I think at one point I was just giving myself 25 carbs a day, which, worked initially. Like
Yeah.
I would lose a little weight. And for me, again, I think that restriction is just very difficult for me.
Mhm.
For some people, like they're able to do that, and more power to them. If it was up to me during my refeeds, I would eat a lot cleaner if I could. It's just very hard for me, which
Mhm.
is why like I fast for longer and I eat a lot more. But when I was doing low carb before, it would work until it didn't. Right.
Mhm.
Like there would be a day where there'd be a family event or like a party, or I'd go to a
Mhm.
bar and it's like, yeah, I drink like 2 beers and whatever, and it's all down the drain. And that
Yes.
cycle would be like the next day it'd be like, well, like I don't want to do 25 carbs. Like this was so enjoyable yesterday, and like that cycle would happen. And so for me, again, I think with the disordered eating, with the overeating, I've said this before, I'm a very all or nothing person. I have that like mentality where it's like you either do it 100% correct or
Mhm.
forget about it, and like that is not the right mindset, but that's a very bad habit that I have a hard time getting myself out of,
Well,
which
it's
is
what
what.
works for you, and if that's what works for you,
Right.
then yeah. Do
And
you subscribe to a particular like diet, or you just kind of eat pretty much wide variety of foods?
yeah, so I've tried. And so here's the thing is
I've tried.
here's the thing is like I know that I could eat better, and over time, over the 21 plus months I've been doing it, I've noticed that my diet has gotten better. It isn't perfect, but when I tell people, like, people will ask me like, how did you lose all that weight? I'm like, so like sometimes I won't even start off with fasting. Sometimes I'll just be
Mhm.
like, I eat half a pumpkin pie every time I eat, and they're like, what? But it's actually honestly the truth. In like the last 20, for some reason I have like this obsession with pie, especially pumpkin pie, and every refeed I eat half of a pie. Like
Wow.
um I do try to eat cleaner. I have on my YouTube channel, I have recorded myself eating, you know, when I first started the YouTube channel, and it was a lot more um, processed or junky than I do now. But it doesn't mean that it isn't super clean
That was
today.
my sneeze.
Oh, you're good.
Sorry.
And so while I try to like keep things a little cleaner, I restrict nothing. So
Mm,
no carb restriction, no anything, no calorie restriction, which is why like I eat 6,000 to 7,000 calories per refeed. Like
mm,
it's more than a lot of people can eat, but for me, that's what gives me satiety. But at the same time, that's what has helped me lose weight, is to do a 6,000, 7,000 calorie refeed and then a 90-hour fast. And so when people ask me like, you lost 90 whatever pound, and it's like, yeah, that's exactly how I've been doing it over and over and over. And as time has passed, I have tried to like, you know, evolve how I eat, which is why like
mm.
I try to cook more. And I've like learned, because I've never been a cook. I would, my whole life I've just been like eating out and like going to fast food and like whatever is easy and like whatever is most processed, because that's what tastes the best.
Yeah.
But like it has changed over time. Ideally I would like to eat less processed foods, but I know that if I put myself on that restriction, I just know that is absolutely a trigger for me to kind of
Mm.
like go in a downward spiral.
How long does it take you to eat that many calories? Do you get like overly stuffed? Like, I mean, 5, 6, I can't even imagine eating that much. I'll eat like 2,000 calories and I can't even finish it. But
Sure.
like, can you give an example? Like how long it takes you and what do you eat? Like pie, of course.
Yeah. So it's funny because when I first started doing this process of rolling fasts and these refeeds,
Hmm.
when I first started, I just said, okay, Jerome, you're going to eat until you're full. And like, that's what I did, because I was just trying to find like that part of me that was like, okay, I'm good. I'm good. I can go start another fast. And when I started counting, I was like, wow, this is a lot more calories than I thought. And it was around the 6,000 range. And I thought, as I started to lose weight, as I went from like 220 to 200 to 180, I thought that the smaller I got, the less I would want to eat that much, but it hasn't changed. Even at 125 pounds, I was still eating 6,000 calories, which I don't know how, I don't know. And I don't know how it's possible. And I know people who have watched me do that on YouTube. They'll be like, Jerome, I try to eat that many and I can't do it. And I'm like, don't do that. Like, you
Yeah,
don't
don't
have to,
try to eat that much.
which is
Yeah.
why now I always say, please don't eat as much as I do. Don't
Mhm.
fast as long as I do. Find the balance that works for
Yeah.
you. So in terms of how long it takes me, I can put down 6,000 calories. Typically it averages around 3 hours, but like I can eat 6,000 calories in under 2 hours and it's not like a race or anything. It's just sometimes like after a 90-hour fast, I do get hungry, and like, that's just how it works. A lot of people will reply though, and they'll be like, hey, I tried this and like, this is awful on my stomach. And I'm like, I get that. And it is for a lot of people. So
Yeah.
please like
It's
figure
what
out what you're
worked
doing
for
first.
you. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I think when people start a different lifestyle, a different diet, or start fasting, they try to change everything. Like
Right.
now I'm a perfect eater, I'm going to eat healthy. And it's obviously it's good to eat healthier,
Sure.
but this is what worked for you. So, and then now as you are into this journey, starting to change those habits that you have learned to do for so long and just doing it slowly, systematically, and not like this
Yes.
big boom, everything, you have to change everything. And a
Right.
lot of times people give up because it's just too much. If you're consistent and you do those small habits, even if it's just one piece of pie less a
Mm-hmm.
week,
Yeah.
it's whatever works for you. Don't,
Right.
but I mean, if you are one of those people that you have to go and only eat healthy, keto, low carb, then do it. It's what works for you. There isn't like, one recipe for everyone out there. And like when people come up to me and they're like, what should I do? What's the best fasting protocol? And I'm like, is the one that works for you. And if you haven't
Yeah.
tried anything, just try something.
Right.
Just jump into a fast, do it 24, see how you feel. If you feel good, go longer. Just because I did rolling 72s and 48s for my first month doesn't mean that that's going to work for someone else.
Yeah, it's really going to be different for everyone. And to kind of just add on to that, in terms of like exercise, right? Like when you were talking about people going all out and having to do everything perfect. When I first started fasting, like I didn't even want to exercise at all. Like I've never really been much of an exercise person until I started to lose this weight. And so like when I first started fasting, I think the first 2 or 3 months I wasn't doing anything physical, because fasting already was taking a toll on me, like for as long as I did. But then I started to incorporate walking, right? And it was just
Yeah.
small walks, and then eventually to the point now where I walk like 4, 5, 6 miles a day. Like it's just I enjoy doing it. It's, for me, it's enjoyable. It's a mental, like it's a mental like break
Yes.
from everything else. And then I started to incorporate strength training. So yeah, that's an evolution of where I've gone, to the point of just like, okay, let's figure out the eating, losing weight part. And then once you
Yeah.
do that, then I started adding the exercise in, and like you said, like over time, you learn more about yourself, right? You learn about what works and what doesn't. And even though like the small habits of, yeah, I could eat a lot better, I could eat a lot less, but I'm learning as I'm doing it, where like I can eat this instead of this, or like maybe
Yes.
today I'll change it up, or I'll stay away from this or that. Again, it's a process. The entire thing is
Yeah.
a
And it's
process.
what works for you individually.
Mm-hmm.
In one of your videos, you said something, I love that. Actually, you said, I don't have time anymore to risk my health.
Yeah.
And that really spoke to me. And I'm like, wow, I don't have time anymore to risk my health. Like, that is such a beautiful way of self-care, thinking about yourself. Like, I'm doing this because I don't want to risk my health. And you have, as far as I know, you have reversed all of your health issues, right? Like your
Mm-hmm.
diabetes, your hypertension,
Right.
and you're pretty
Well, even
healthy.
again, yeah, the
Yeah.
mental state behind it, right? Because
Hmm.
at so when I was in my 20s, I ended up going to therapy for my eating issues, and it was really difficult because, especially at the time, because my therapist was talking about depression and putting me, on antidepressants, and it was just so much. It was a lot, and it's something that I've dealt with for a long, long time, and so being able to put myself in a healthier position has helped in a lot of ways. But the one thing that I told myself when I did start, or at least when I was trying to really get into a healthier place, was where I told myself the only two important things in life, and I feel like this can be for almost anybody, is your health and your happiness. Those are the two things that, like, I feel trump anything else in life, because without your health, you
Yeah.
have nothing. Like, people talk about, I need to, I put myself aside for my kids or my, so and so. And, but it's like, yeah, while that's great, and like, there's nothing wrong with that. If you're not healthy, I mean, what's going to happen when you get sick, and then you're not able to care or do things for, and that's why it's like, you have to take some time, even if it's just an hour a day, or like, the way you eat or whatever, to keep yourself healthy. Because without
Right.
that, like, yeah, people talk about money, right? And like, I've left good paying jobs because they were
Hmm.
too stressful for me. And I've had clients that I've worked with that I'm just like, I can't do this because it was too much. And it was one of those things where it's like, I would rather keep my sanity, keep my health and happiness first, over money, over making an extra dollar or whatever. Because yeah, again, like that, I, and those are things I still try to remind myself with, because it's still a difficult thing. But health and happiness, yeah, number one.
Absolutely. Are
Hmm.
there any things that you do in your daily practice to like keep your mind in a good state? Because I do think, sometimes it's like, how do you get to that state? It's not something just comes naturally to be positive or to
Right.
think a certain way. It is also a practice. You have to practice to keep your mind in a certain level. Were there any things that you've done other than fasting, of course, to keep your mind in a healthier state? Anything that helped you overcome those mental struggles?
So for me, I think the most important thing was to just remind myself that my health meant more than anything. That it was just important for me to stay healthy, and I think that's really what helped me keep going. I don't know if there's a specific thing that I tell myself when I go through my day to day, but I think a lot of it is more routine than anything else. I,
Mm-hmm.
I would get up, I would go for my walk, and I would
Mm-hmm.
do like, I would keep myself busy, but I always had, I guess, the goal in mind to just stay healthy, to keep what I was doing, because I knew that if I were to go back to my old ways, it would be a downward spiral.
Mm-hmm.
A great example though is lately, like I picked up some new work. In the last 3 months, I picked up new work, and it's great work.
Mm-hmm.
But it is super, super stressful. There's just so much to do. And I noticed that those three, and it's one of the reasons that like I had taken a break from YouTube, because this new work has completely taken over my life. And at the same time, that's how, because I was consistent with my weight forever until these last 3 months. These last
Mm-hmm.
3 months, I put on about like 8 to 10 pounds, which isn't like a total loss, but like for me, it's noticeable. And for me, I was just like, what happened here? And I think a lot of that is, again, the accountability, not having the YouTube, not being on there as regularly. And that really played a lot in my mental state. And it's something that I'm trying to work out right now. Like I'm trying to find a proper work-life balance, which is very difficult, and putting myself in that mind state, because I started to eat back-to-back days because I knew I didn't have to tell anyone on YouTube. I knew I didn't have to make a video or post something on Instagram because I was away from it. And to make up for it, I would eat 4 or 5 days back to back, and then I would do a week fast. And like I know not everyone can do that, but like I was getting into these worse habits where it was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, you ate 4 days in a row, so now you're gonna fast for a week. It's like that's not how you.
Sabotaging yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, and I will say that the last 3 months have been difficult, but the last couple of weeks, putting myself back into a proper mental state
Mm-hmm.
has been a difficult transition, because it felt like starting over again. It's like, how did I do this before? And to kind of like add on to your question there, how, because a lot of people will tell me this too. They'll be like, hey, I did this before. I've done these long fasts. I can't do them anymore. I don't know why I can't do them anymore, but I
Mm-hmm.
can't do them.
Yes.
I get that a lot. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times I think people just, sometimes I don't think people realize how strong physically and mentally they really are. I think they find it hard because they put themselves in a situation where they're used to eating a certain way again. And like I think it's just getting over that hump of like knowing that you can do it. Like, you're doing it for a reason. Like all the reasons you did it before,
Yeah.
all the reasons that you got to that point to like get you to lose that, you can do it again. It's
Mm-hmm.
just finding
Is that
that.
mental blockage, I think, because I hear that a lot too. Like people will lose like 70 pounds and then regain it back. And then they're like, I can't get back into it. And I think part of it is that fear of like, well, I regained all this weight and now I'm going to do it again and I'm going to regain it. Like you're almost in your subconscious, you are fearing
Sure.
regaining all that weight and feeling embarrassed. So it
Yeah.
is like a form of self-sabotage. So I mean, what can you do when you get in that rut? You gain this weight back. What are some of the advice do you have to help people get through those setbacks?
So from personal experience, at least for me, I think one of the things that I try, or at least have tried to do, is to try to go all out. I'll tell myself, you did it before, you can do it again exactly the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that isn't the case. Sometimes I think we need to tell ourselves that consistency is more important than how much weight or how
Mm-hmm.
long you could do a fast for, right? Like we can talk about doing a 7-day fast, but what are you going to do after that? And how long can you maintain what you're doing? And I think that's an important thing to kind of note here is like take the small steps as success, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like if you did a 36 before and now you're only able to do an OMAD, like that's okay. Like you
Yeah.
build up to it, you build that consistency to make those little steps to gain that success again. For people that do struggle with that, that's maybe a time where if you've never found accountability, maybe it's time to find an accountability partner. Maybe it's time to find someone that can help you coach you to get through like the tough times. I think again, a lot of it is more mental than physical in that regard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And I've been there before. And sometimes when I think back, like, how did I get out of this rut? Like, I lost, like 40 pounds and then regained like most of it in a month. And
Mm-hmm.
I would beat myself up so much. Like, oh my gosh, I'm a loser. I just can't do that. So I think number one is forgiving yourself, like actually working
Yeah,
from the inside out, from the inside, like what caused me to regain this weight again, and just reframing the negative emotions, the beating yourself up into, I got this, I'm gonna continue self-love and continue doing this till I get it right.
I
You're
like
not
that.
failing
Yeah.
until you stop trying. And I think that's one thing that's stuck in my mind. Even though I regained weight, I didn't fail. I
Mm-hmm.
just, I have to do it again and again till I get it right.
It
And I think
is.
this time it worked.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's absolutely a learning process,
Hmm.
and if you don't do it right,
Yeah.
you'll never know, and you'll never learn from like those past mistakes.
Hmm. So if you're one of those people that it's in a rut or gain weight back and then just can't get back into it, just number one, just spend some time just forgiving yourself. Don't beat yourself up and just try again. It's okay. It's
Yeah,
okay that you regained the weight. You can do it again. I mean, it's a good practice. You did it once, you can do it again. If it happens
absolutely.
again, you can do it again. So it's
Yeah.
okay. You keep trying till you get yourself in the space where you're happy, because there's nothing more important than that inner happiness. Yes, I can look great and my body can look great, but if I'm not happy in here, that doesn't really matter, because it reflects back on how you act. Everything that's inside of you shows on the outside as well.
I agree. That's actually great that you say that, because even when I lost all the weight and I was, at like my ideal weight, I remember there were times where I was like, okay, I'm here now. But sometimes I didn't feel like, I think a lot of people think that once you get to that weight and you
Mm-hmm.
look the way you want to look, everything is going to be perfect. You're going to
No.
like mentally. And like, I remember looking at myself and I'm just like, everything fits. I feel like I look good, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like I thought I initially was going. And like, I'm not saying that I don't. I mean, I'm in the best shape. I'm in the best mental health I've ever been. But it really goes to show how again, your mind, putting
Mm-hmm.
yourself, you need to put yourself there, you need to give yourself that confidence, you need to feel, you need to love yourself, right? Like
Yes.
no matter what weight you're at, no matter what part of the weight loss or health journey you're on, you have to love yourself,
Mm-hmm.
because if you don't, you could lose all that weight and you could still feel like how you were 50
Mm-hmm.
pounds more.
Yeah. And I think that's so important. And when I coach my girls and guys
Mm-hmm.
too, from the beginning, I don't care, you can be 300 pounds. One of the things that I make everyone do is they have to record affirmations in the morning. Like when they wake up, they have to, before they step on the scale, they have to say, I am enough. I'm beautiful. I'm strong. Whatever it is, the affirmations you want to say, because even though it sounds silly, sometimes people are like, oh my gosh, but I'm not. It's like, you have to start believing those things, because you are. And your weight loss is going to be so much better when you actually ingrain those things in your subconscious. That's why repeating things like that, the words, I did that the first year. I would wake up and the first thing I would say, I am enough. I'm beautiful, I'm strong. And I was like 250 pounds at that time. And even though sometimes it felt silly to say those things, it does work. So I would start with that.
I should start doing that.
Do it. I mean, all the girls actually love it. They like, before, it's like, you cannot step on the scale till you record saying it out loud. Because I listen to it. It makes me feel better, actually. I love listening to their affirmations because it reaffirms me as well. So I think it just, those affirmations said out loud make a huge difference, I think. And then you can step on the scale, whatever that number says, it doesn't matter. It's just a number, because you already affirmed to yourself that you are enough no matter what that scale says. So if you're struggling with that, I would start with that, because your weight does not define you. You're still, it's in here. It's what you think of yourself. I mean, you see people that are like bigger and they feel good. They're sexy.
It's great. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that's all on that topic. Let's see. Oh, this is a big one. So what advice would you give someone that is just starting the fasting focused lifestyle? Or maybe is thinking like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this. Like, what advice would you give to somebody that's new to fasting?
So one of the things is I think right away they look for a number, right? And when whatever that number is, it might sound daunting. Like, I don't know if I can do that. That seems like way too much. The one thing I always like to say too is like, hey, most of that time, like 8 hours of that should be sleeping already. So like, if you're talking about doing a 16-hour fast, really, you should be sleeping for 8 hours, hopefully. And then the other 8 hours is the time that you really are fasting, the time that you are, actively trying not to eat. And whether that number is 16 that you give yourself, if you're not able to hit that 16, that's okay. Like, you can aim for 14 or 12 or whatever it may be, because everybody starts in a different place. Some people might be used to eating at the same time every day, like multiple times a day. And I think it's just breaking out of that habit. There's also that hormonal thing where, your body is letting you know it's time to eat because you've been eating at that same time ever. And the one thing I always say is like, the hunger comes in waves. You'll feel hungry, but it'll pass. It's temporary, right? If we were hungry all day, every day, and it never like went away, that might be a different issue. But like, once you get over that hump and you get used to it, it becomes a lot easier. It becomes a lot more normal. The one other thing I also tell people is the food will always be there. The food will always be there. It doesn't, like, I get it, especially at like social events or when everyone is out and like everyone's eating and you can't be. It's like, you will have that opportunity again later, right? Like that bag of chips or whatever, or, like, you can always go get that some other time. If you put yourself in a position where like, hey, I'm fasting, that's your fasting time. Like so for me, I give myself, I call it a switch, right? I turn the switch on and I turn it off. And I always forget which way it goes on or off, but like when that switch is on, that means I'm fasting, right? Like nothing is going to change my position. Like when people try to like, because that happens all the time. Like, it'll have like, come on, Jerome, it's like, we're all going out to lunch. Let's go grab something. And I'm like, I already told you I'm fasting. That
peer pressure, like you get a lot of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Or it's like, just try it. Like all you have, just a small bite. And it's like, it's like, did you not hear me when I said I'm fasting? I'm not eating anything. And so like for me, that's kind of what helps me get through my fasts is I'm in that fasting mode, right? Like I put myself in that position where I'm like, no, nothing is going to change how I feel about it because I have a certain time when I eat and a certain time when I don't eat. I guess the last thing there too is, at least for me, it's one, yeah, accountability and having a partner is great, but also for me, I like to have a timer, right? I like to use a fasting app. I think that's very helpful for me because even if I don't get through that fast, I don't look at it as a failure. I just end it. So like a lot of people have that, and I've done it too. This is something I've done in the past where I didn't hit my goal and then I don't stop the timer because I'm just like, I messed it up. I'm just going to start over some other day. But like, if you are actively hitting the start and stop over and over and over, then you're giving yourself accountability. You're telling yourself, hey, I'm going to stop eating right now. And then at least when you do stop eat, or at least when you do stop fasting rather, when you stop that timer and you refeed, like go back into that app and then start your fast again. Because if you don't do that, I think for a lot of people, they throw it to the wayside and then they forget that, they don't think about fasting then, which is why like they end up going back to the fasting app like 2 weeks later and they're like, oh, it shows that I'm still fasting after, I think we've all been there.
I like that. Yeah, I like that actually. I like starting my fasting app clock and be like, okay, just ate my last piece of food and I'm starting this fast, and I go back and look at it as like, oh, I've been fasting for 16 hours. And it kind of gives me motivation. It's like, I can do another 16 or yeah, that's a great advice. Going back to just what you said with people, just a lot of times people don't even care why you're not eating. Just say, I'm not hungry. I just ate. I'm good. Like,
that's
a lot of places they don't even care. Like, just don't eat.
Yeah.
Don't fall into that peer pressure because it's like people don't really care that much. It's more in our mind. We get obsessed about it. We're like, oh my gosh, what are they gonna think? And most of the times they don't even, if some of the people that you're friends with or you don't want to say I'm fasting because sometimes people be like, oh, why are you starving yourself? Just say you're not hungry if you don't want to say you're fasting.
No, that's
totally
fine.
Great.
That's great advice. That's great advice. Yeah, I was going to say, so like one of the clients that I have that I do work for, like it's a food company. So like I do like food photography for them and videography, and there's a lot of taste testing. And sometimes I have to be in those, at least for like the research part. And I'm like, I can't, and it's not that like at first I felt bad because I felt like I was offending, like, it's like, hey, like you're doing work for us, like you need to try. And I'm just like, but I do tell people I fast. Like for me, I'm very upfront about it. But I've noticed with other people as well, because I've been doing it for so long and because I've had success with it, nobody even at this point now, like even because my mom knows I do it, and like at this point, my mom's like, are you fasting today? She's like, are you eating today? So she knows, like a lot of people who have seen me lose the weight, like they know that it does work for me. So at that point, they don't even question it anymore. It's more or less, hey, are you eating or are you not eating today?
I agree. Once you like had success with it, like, because my friends and my family is the same way, like, hey, are you fasting today or you're gonna eat? And they're they don't give me crap about it. They're very supportive because they've seen me change from the inside out and maintain the weight for the last year. So that's huge. But if you're new to fasting, you're just starting off, you haven't made much progress, if you don't feel comfortable saying you're fasting because you feel like people are going to judge you or say you're starving, then you don't have to. It's really up to you. Whatever you feel comfortable with, it's totally up to you.
I agree.
I do have some questions on from Instagram that people have wanted to ask.
Sure.
One of them is, can you discuss sugar and carb cravings? How do you deal with that?
So that is my weakness. That is absolutely my weakness.
And a lot of people's weakness as well. Yep.
And so I don't have the best answer for that because my solution to that is how I work my fasting regimen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the reason I fast for 65 hours or for 90 hours is because I know that I eat anywhere between 6,000 and 7,000 calories.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that if I fast for that long, I will still lose weight. Even if I fast at 42 minimum, if I fast at 42 hours,
Mm-hmm.
I maintain my weight. I don't gain weight. I don't really lose weight. I kind of keep my weight stable then. So for me, I feed into those cravings, which is why, like, I know earlier you had asked what I eat, and just to like give you like a quick detail of it, like I start off with like the healthy foods. Like I have a huge salad at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, and then I have like my protein, and then I end up eating like chips and salsa and guac, and then I'll have like
Sounds amazing. Woo.
it is amazing, especially when you, for me it is, I get to refeed tonight after I'm doing a 65-hour fast today, and so like I'm
Mm-hmm.
already excited to eat later today. And then I'll usually end it with like half a pie, and that's usually my cravings there.
Mm-hmm.
But like so for me, I actually like, I celebrate the cravings because
Mm-hmm.
I've fasted long enough to put myself in a position where I can eat it and I will still either one, maintain my weight, or two, lose weight
Mm-hmm.
depending on my fast. But to achieve that, you have to be able to fast for that time that you know
Mm-hmm.
that you can take that in. So maybe just to kind of help with that, one question a lot of people do ask me is like, hey, I have a social event, or like I know I'm going to be eating more because I'm going to a bar, or like I'm going to have dinner and I'm not going to be like eating the normal things I typically eat. Like, how can I do this and not feel? And so the one thing I say is like, schedule your fasts properly. If you know
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be eating more, if you know you're like, for somebody who has that craving, or like maybe set time aside for it, right? Like incorporate it with your refeed, incorporate it with your eating, and backload it, meaning like that's why like I front load with all the vegetables first. Like when
Mm-hmm.
I have like my big salad, after that I eat like a pound or a pound and a half of vegetables after that, because like I'm trying to put all the good food first to kind of fill me up, so that when I do have the junkier foods, I
Mm-hmm.
don't eat all of it. Because if you know
Yeah, that
I
makes sense. Yeah.
yeah, because I know that if I started my
Mm-hmm.
refeed with pie and chips first, the
Mm-hmm.
salad and vegetables, I wouldn't even make a dent in that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I do like that. And I do that myself too. If I go on vacation, I know I'm going to be like gone for a week and I just want to not have to restrict
sure.
food. So I'll do like a 72-hour fast before I go on
Yeah,
vacation. And then I'll do another one when I come back to just kind of help the dopamine receptors
of
to
course.
balance them so I'm not having those cravings. But the last time I went on vacation was on my birthday in April to Florida. I mean, I had nachos for breakfast and I didn't feel
That
bad
sounds
about it.
amazing.
Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, it's okay. And I gained a little bit of weight, but not as much as I thought I would have. But again, like if you have, I mean, we all have those carb cravings, sugar cravings. If you absolutely cannot control them and you need to like eliminate, I know people that have to completely eliminate those trigger foods, then do it. It doesn't work for all of us because that restriction, like the
Right.
more you restrict and the more you say, oh, I can't have it, the more your brain craves it. So almost like changing the way you think about food. Like, yes, I can have pizza, but I choose to have chicken
Sure.
salad at the moment. And then your brain doesn't think that that pizza is scarce. It's still there. You can still have it. It's not that, no, you can't have it, brain.
Yeah,
You're just like,
right.
yes, you can have it, but I'm going to have this. I did the same thing with alcohol. When COVID started, that was one thing that I did not want to drink. That's
Hmm.
something that I committed to. I didn't drink for like, I think 8 months,
Oh,
actually, 7 or 8 months.
wow.
And instead of saying, oh, I can't have wine, I can't have wine, I said, I can have wine, but I choose not to because I don't want to feel hungover. I don't want to feel
Yeah,
anxious
that's
and
great.
not get enough sleep. And so my mind started thinking of wine like, oh, it's a something you don't want to feel. Like, I didn't think of the wine. I didn't associate the wine as like, oh, I'm going to feel buzzed and
Yeah.
like warm and tingly. And,
Right.
so I kind of turned it around and I started thinking of how it's going to make me feel the next day. Oh, I don't want to have a headache. I don't want to feel hungover or wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. And that helped. So sometimes if there's a food that you don't want, like if you get bloated after eating like a whole pie of pizza, then
Right.
maybe say it in a way, yes, I can have pizza, but I don't like the way it makes me feel. I feel bloated, my belly gets distended.
Sure.
So try that. I don't know. It's all a mental game. It's
It
how
is.
you present that image to your subconscious mind.
Yeah, that's great.
So,
I like that.
yeah. Okay, here's another thing. There was a lot of comments on here. Uh,
Okay.
Monica Trevino Ortega.
Oh, there you
Do
go.
you know her?
No, I do not.
Okay. She says, I love him. I'm so excited to hear this one. I love that he makes fasting
Perfect.
work for him and that he's honest and does not promote rules. I agree. I love that as well. Uh,
Yeah. I was just gonna say there. Well, and thank you, Monica, for saying that.
that's
I
really
was just,
sweet.
yeah, I was just gonna to add on to it is it's when I first started the channel, I knew that it was gonna get a little blowback when I first started, and it did. I remember talking about what I did, like fasting for a long period of time and then
Mm-hmm.
eating the way I do. And then I talked about it on Reddit and there was so much blowback from it. It was just incredible. Like, why do you eat that way? Why are you doing this? This isn't, and it's like, and that's like later on I had to start explaining like, hey, like it's because I do have issues with eating and this is what
Mm-hmm.
works and this is the only thing that makes me lose weight. And now that's why I always have like I kind of put a little like prelude to people saying like, you have to do what works for you. It's
Yeah.
really important. And at this point, what I do on my channel is just share my story. So then like you can take the little bits and pieces that I do and
Mm-hmm.
maybe tweak it to your way because yeah, like again, just like everybody's different. Everyone has a
I
different way
love
of
that.
doing
And I
things.
think that's why people resonate with you so much because when you, as soon as you start these hard core rules like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
you should not have anything else but snake juice. You know what? I don't like snake juice. It
Yeah.
tastes like shit. Okay. It makes me gag. So I came up with my own recipe. I put
Yeah, there you
some
go.
flavor electrolytes. They do have stevia, and some people give me crap about it. It's like, oh, doesn't that break your fast? Well, you know what? I've been successful with it. If
I have
you
been too. I've been successful that way as well.
Yes, there's a lot of rules. There's like the water only fasting, and you don't need anything, no electrolytes, nothing. I just does not work for me. If it works for you, do it. But I even have people that they're so afraid of fasting, like some of my clients. I have them go on like, okay, you can have your coffee in the morning and then you can have a bone broth at night. Does the bone broth break your
Mm-hmm.
fast? Yeah, it does. Will you still lose
Right.
weight? Absolutely. But
Yeah,
if it
right.
helps you get through that first 72-hour fast, then do it because the next time you can do it without the bone broth or coffee, whatever else you want to have, and you can be successful. So again, it's not those hard rules don't work for me. If they work for you, great. But we both agree that you have to do what works for your body and try different things.
Yeah, because again, like the longer you can be consistent, I think is more important
Mhm.
than how hardcore you can do it for.
Yeah.
Because again, how long can you be hardcore for? And how are you actually going to transition after you get out of that? Because once you're yeah, I mean, some people have better willpower than others, but
Yeah.
some people might have more motivation than others. But once you get to that point of like where you downward spiral or you fall out of your rhythm, how are you going to climb back out from that? And I think that's why it's important to know that you should give yourself some flexibility when you're doing any of these, the length
Mhm.
of your fast, how you're breaking it, how you're eating in between, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I love that. Again, do what works for you. We
Mm-hmm.
did what worked for us, does not mean it won't work for you.
Yep.
5,000 calories would not work for me, but it worked for Jerome. And, some people have to completely eliminate carbs. It works for them.
Right.
And for some people, it doesn't work. They go crazy. They feel deprived. So yeah, going back to the questions.
Uh-huh.
Oh, another one. I love him. Got a lot of fans out there. Are you single? You don't have to answer that. I mean, listen, there's like a lot of, I'm not going to say who asked that, but
I'm we're not gonna go through with that. I try to keep my personal life out of.
we don't have to go into that. But some of those questions are pretty funny, actually. Do you coach?
So yeah, I do coach. I have coached a number of people, and the only difficult part right now is the amount of work I have at the moment, and that's. It doesn't mean that I won't coach. I just think I just have to work a schedule out with people. I do have a Patreon where I do offer that, but people can email me at finallyfasting@gmail.com. And we can talk about maybe scheduling things. My coaching is a bit different though, because it's like, I'm not certified. I can only share my experience. I can only be an accountability partner for people, but I do coach. Just, I think my methods might be a little different than maybe what some people
expect. If you're interested, message him, email him, or you can message him on Instagram at finallyfasting.
Thank you.
Or email finallyfasting@gmail.com.
Correct.
And definitely subscribe to his YouTube channel.
Thank you.
Finally Fasting. I did subscribe to it, actually. So
Thanks.
I'm your follower now. One last question. I want to respect your time, of course. I've enjoyed this conversation so much. One last question I want to ask you, and I ask this to everyone. What are the 3 things you wish you had known sooner about really anything in your life? Diet, relationships, just life in general, like any advice or things that you've learned?
Yeah. I mean, I guess the first thing, and I've said it earlier, is prioritize your health and your happiness. It's something that I have never really properly done because I was always focused on like making money or, I was, especially when I was younger, I didn't think of that. I didn't think about my health. It wasn't important to me because whatever. Even when I was diagnosed as a diabetic at 22, like I didn't think about it. At first I was, but later on you just don't think about it because diabetes is one of those things that like silently, will eat away at your health, if you don't take care of it. The thing I said earlier is just when I say prioritize it, just know that like, again, without your health, you really can't enjoy the rest of your life. If, you might be able to for a little bit. And then once that starts to go, like how, like you'll realize you should have maybe done things a little better, one way or another.
And money can't buy health.
It can't. And like, what are you going to do with all that money if like, you're not able to enjoy it?
Yes.
But, yeah. So the second thing, these things, I guess, will just be all related, excuse me, to fasting and health. Like I guess there are other things that like I would say that revolve around life things, but I'll just keep this kind of on topic. Health and happiness, I feel like, is the answer to pretty much everything for me at this point. And I feel like for a lot of people, everyone, I think, deserves a great quality of health and happiness in their life. But to kind of like go on, it just in terms of like fasting, the one thing that I always say is consistency is key. I used to, sorry, there's sirens. I live in the city.
They're coming to get you.
So I used to tell people, I used to brag about, I won't say brag, but like the longest fast I've ever done was 11 days. And I an 11-day, like complete, like, water fast at that time. And I was very proud of that. But I actually did that 11-day fast before I started doing these rolling fasts, before I even knew how to like, I initially found extended fasting because of snake diet, right? Like that's how I first learned that I wasn't going to die doing it. So I did an 11-day one, and I used to like talk about like how great it was and like how much weight I lost during those 11 days. But what happened after those 11 days, I couldn't tell you. I gained all the weight back. Like because I was like, I didn't know what to do after that. I had no idea what to do after that. Like, what happens after this 11-day fast? Do I do another 11-day fast? And so it took, I think, another year before I realized that, like, okay, maybe I don't do 11-day fasts, but maybe I do longer fasts, see how much calories that burn, and then, like, incorporate a proper refeeding method to consistently lose weight. And so
you mean you do shorter fasts?
Yes.
You said longer fasts. So shorter fasts and
I'm sorry.
And work on your refeeds.
Yeah, like do fasts that will burn enough calories to compensate for your refeed. So if if you eat 2,000 calorie refeeds or 3,000 calorie refeeds, then maybe a 36 or a 48-hour fast is what is appropriate for you to do it. But at the end of the day, the more important part is how long can you be consistent with it? Yes. Because anyone can, I'm not saying anyone, but like, yeah, we all have our great stories of how we lost X amount of pounds in X amount of days, but there aren't a lot of people that that I know personally or that I've talked to that can tell me that they have been able to keep the weight off or have been consistently fasting for like as long as I have. And I'm not saying that in a bragging way. I'm just saying that in a way where it's like, hey, I found something that works. Like, this is a consistent method for me that I know I can live with this, doing this. And it might not always be, excuse me, it might not always be a 65-hour, it might not always be a 90-hour fast, but I know what I need to do to kind of keep that weight off. So the last thing, and this doesn't just apply to fasting, but this or weight loss, this applies to just everything in general. And the one thing I do say a lot is don't wait till Monday. And what I mean by that is, and I mean, yes, this does relate to weight loss, but I am one of those people. I mean, I still do it, but not as bad, but one of those people where I would say, I'm not going to start my diet or my fasting or whatever I'm doing until Monday, because it's Thursday already. The weekend is here. Yeah. So I'm just going to enjoy my weekend. And I know a lot of people can relate because I know a lot of people have done it. And so they'll take the entire weekend and they will like gorge themselves. And then when Monday hits, they might have that energy to do that. But then Wednesday comes along or like and then that cycle happens again. Yes. And when I say Monday, I don't just literally mean Monday, but like this happens when the new year hits. Yes. Like, it's like, oh, it's already, but it's Christmas already, or Thanksgiving is here. So I'm just going to wait until the next year. And then before you know it, you've just spent the last 6 weeks, like putting yourself in a position where you didn't need to be. And it doesn't mean that you can't enjoy yourself but it doesn't mean that you just let yourself go for the next 6 weeks. I mean, if that's what you choose to do, that's on you. But like, that kind of habit is very hard to get out of. I'm very guilty of that, where I'm just like, well, the new month is coming. The new year is coming. Monday's coming. Let's just start over then. And like, we all know for a lot of people how that turns out. So that's the last thing I have to say.
It's that mental procrastination because you are dreading something or you don't want to start something. I'm guilty of it. I've done it in the past. New Year's resolutions. Oh, it's already mid-December. I'm just going to eat like crap for the rest 2 weeks, and then I'll start in January 1st. And then what happens? January 1st comes and you feel like crap. You feel bloated. You don't even want to go to the gym. You don't want to show your face to people. And then you like, oh, well, maybe I'll just start tomorrow. And it's this vicious cycle. It does not work. I do want to go back to your point, your second point. And something I want to add to that worked for me. I did the same thing. It's like, you're my like soul brother. I did like my longest fast before I even started like consistently fasting was 5 days, just straight water fast.
Yeah.
And then just like yourself, I stopped the fast. I lost quite a bit of weight. I don't even remember how
Mm-hmm.
much. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes. But then I went back to just eating throughout all day long. You
Right.
cannot do that. You have to, like, the one thing that helped me is eliminating the snacking. Like,
Yes.
if you're going to eat 2 meals a day, just know, okay, I'm going to eat lunch and dinner. And there's no snacking in between, because
Yeah.
that can turn into this whole binge fest, eating just all day
Of
long. And
course.
that's what happened to me. I regained that whatever 15 pounds I lost in 5 days,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt awful because I just went back to the old lifestyle. And I did that for a year. I would do this whole self-sabotage, like fast for 72 hours, eat for the rest of the week. And that doesn't work. It absolutely
Yeah.
does not work. Like, if you want this lifestyle to work for you, either at least do like OMAD or 2MAD. Don't go back to the eating all day long, because you will get super frustrated yourself and you're going to regain most of the weight.
Right. No, completely agree. That's thank you for sharing that. And again, a lot of that is finding that balance, right? Like, yeah, we might know what to do initially, and we might have all that, like, motivation and gumption to
Mm-hmm.
like do all that, but if you don't know what to do after, that's that you need to have a plan. You need to have,
Yes.
and like that's something I've said too. You need to have a backup plan,
Mm-hmm.
because you might say, I'm going to do a 168-hour fast. Well, what happens when you don't do
Mm-hmm.
it? Like, what is your plan after
Yeah.
that? And that's what I tell people now is have a backup plan, because when it doesn't go your way, or if something in life happens that happens unexpectedly, you
Mm-hmm.
need to have, like, I guess, an escape plan, right? You need to have something in your, like, your arsenal or your toolbox or whatever, to tell yourself, okay, well, this didn't happen, so this is what I'm going to do instead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not a quick fix. It doesn't work. It actually, if you do
Mm-hmm.
the low, actually, Cole says that. Cole Robinson says before you start fasting, just be consistent with, like, if you can do OMAD for a month and
Yeah,
not snack throughout the day, then you can move on to a longer fast.
I
Like,
agree.
I know people that fasted a month and then they regained most of the weight because they went back to just, they didn't fix the eating part. The refeeding is
Yeah.
the key, is not the
Mm-hmm.
fast. Once you get past the 3 days of fasting, it's actually kind of easy
Yeah.
to go longer. So
Right.
it's just controlling those shorter fasts and the refeeds.
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah. Drink your electrolytes,
That too. Yeah.
do the mental work, listen to our podcast, listen to Jerome's YouTube, Finally Fasting. He's got some good stuff. It actually motivated me. I was like,
Thank
oh,
you.
this is good stuff. I love it. And
Nice.
it's your personal experience and you're so relatable, like somebody said on Instagram. And that's what people like. It's not some perfect, I never make mistakes. I make lots of mistakes. I know you have.
Mm-hmm.
We're all struggling with stuff, stress, family. It's okay.
It
Give
is
yourself a
okay.
break. It's
Yeah.
not supposed to be perfect. We're not perfect.
Yeah. No, that well said. I couldn't even add more to that. Very well said.
I hope that this helps everyone out there. I so enjoyed speaking with you. Again,
Likewise.
you're so relatable, and I just love what you share with people. I hope everyone subscribes to your channel and follows you
Thank
on
you.
Instagram. I'll post all your um, info in the description so people can find you.
I appreciate
And
it.
yes, I appreciate it so much as well. And I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. You got
You too,
anything fun
Monica.
planned today?
Work.
Any work?
Work.
Yes,
A lot of work, but it'll be okay. I'll figure it out. So,
that's
yeah.
awesome.